Greetings. I'm Sam Blum,
And I'm Andrew Mamo.
and this is our presentation on international economics, which is the study of economics played out on an international stage. And that is what we will be discussing today, using 20 seconds of time per slide.
In the 21st century, international trade has become an incredibly important part of every nation's economy. All economies, regardless of their size, whether the United States, Russia, or Zimbabwe, depend to some extent on other economies and are affected by events outside of their borders.
As demonstrated by this cool, futury blue map of the world, the internationalization or globalization of the U.S. economy has occurred in the private and public sectors, in input and output markets, and in business firms and households, totally encompassing our economy.
In the modern economy, exports are goods and services which leave a nation, while imports are goods and services that are brought into a nation from foreign countries. When a country exports more than it imports, it runs a trade surplus, while a trade deficit is run when a country imports more than it exports. In every situation involving imports and exports between two nations, there arises comparative advantage. This theory was created by David Ricardo and states that specialization and free trade will benefit all trading partners, even those that will absolutely be less efficient producers. Also, wages will rise.
And now, a skit.
Hello, old chap. I simply can't afford to specialize in pears, as my opportunity costs are too high. You seem to have a comparative advantage, though.
Don't worry, mate. You produce the apples, and I will produce the pears, as I have a lower opportunity cost.
Here is an example of an output scenario. The nation of Yandel can produce 5 Zuccocellos per hour, or 2 candles per hour, where the Commonwealth of Zuccarello can produce 6 Zuccocellos per hour, or 3 candles per hour. Why candles take more time than cellos, I don't know. To calculate opportunity cost in an output scenario, simply place the produced item that is being given up over the item that is being produced in its stead. This fraction is the opportunity cost. From these opportunity costs in the chart, we can determine that Zuccarello should produce Zuccocellos and Yandel should produce candles.
There is also one other way to look at comparative advantage, and that is the input method. In this method, example here, it shows that the nation of Nash would take 3 hours to produce 1 leotard, and 2 hours to produce a sash, while the great island of Broussard would take 4 hours to produce 1 leotard, and 5 hours to produce a sash. When calculating comparative advantage using the input method, what you don't make goes on the denominator, which makes the nice little acronym ID. So in this case scenario, the nation of Nash should make sashes, and the nation of Broussard should make leotards, of course.
Even if a country has a considerable absolute advantage in the production of both goods, specialization and trade are still mutually beneficial. Both countries receive gains from trade. Essentially, when they specialize in the item in which they have a comparative advantage, they end up with more goods overall.
Oftentimes, governments intervene in international trade to produce better market outcomes. They do this through 2 different ways. The first of which is a quota, which is a set maximum amount of a product allowed to enter their country. The second way is a tariff or a tax on imported goods.
There are many reasons for a government to step into economic affairs. For one, they may want to protect specific industries from foreign competition. In another case, they may want specifically to target industries that produce defense items for a country. They may want to defend infant industries, or perhaps protect wages and employment.
The first of the 2 tools that a government can use to influence international trade is a quota. Instead of permitting free trade or imposing a complete ban, this nation may decide to set a limit of the amount of imports allowed inside of the country. On the next slide, you'll see how that affects the economy as a whole. This graph shows the supply and demand of the good that we are discussing here. The domestic supply is naturally less than the total supply. When the quota is imposed, the total supply will shift to the left because less international goods are permitted into the market. This drives the price up and the total quantity down.
Fewer international. A tariff is a tax on an import. The imposition of a tax increases the cost of each unit, which is represented by a decrease in supply. This would result in an increase in equilibrium price and a decrease in equilibrium quantity. This tariff causes the total supply to decrease because the tariff causes the price to increase at every level of output. When a product goes from solely a domestic market to a worldwide market, the total supply of it increases. As a means of counteracting this decrease in domestic production, the government may institute a tariff which would bring supply somewhat back down.
In addition to using quotas and tariffs, a nation may choose to assist its domestic industries by providing subsidies. The subsidies would lower the costs and permit the industry to sell at a lower price. This assistance is called an export subsidy because the industry can now compete on the world market and export some of its products to other nations. In relation to international economics, there is one agreement that's definitely worth discussing. This is the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA. This agreement was signed by the United States, Mexico, and Canada, and establishes all three countries, therefore all of North America, as a free trade zone, entirely eliminating tariffs and quotas.
On behalf of myself and my talented broadcasting partner, I would like to wish you, the viewer, best of luck in your studies of economics. May you one day rule the world with your power, money, sense, good looks, and something else. I won't tell you though.